to C3 Bathurst. We're so glad you jumped on to our YouTube channel. We really believe that you'll have life. Jesus said life in all of its fullness will be yours. And that means you'll be loved, included, free, and equipped. So enjoy this message, and we'll catch you afterwards. God bless.
Alrighty. To start with, I just want to make it very clear I'm sharing not as an expert in this stuff. I'm not pretending for a moment that I have landed these rhythms, practices, spiritual disciplines. Although perhaps not popular in our society today, I really like the word discipline. I think it acknowledges that it actually takes work. Comer in his book talks about time and how we all have the same amount and how much wasted time there is, especially in our Western society. To be countercultural, to do something different, I think takes discipline, and it's not always easy. In addition to work, it takes sacrifice, choosing this instead of choosing that. And if I'm being honest, before I knew the delight of silence, choosing silence over busyness did not make any sense to me, nor was it remotely appealing. I learnt this discipline as a result of being a train wreck. I was so done, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. I had lots of questions, lots of frustrations. I've done so much for God. Why is it just so hard? Is God even real? What do I even believe? I just can't keep going on like this. Maybe if I move towns or even countries, I can start all over again and all of this will be better. It wouldn't be, because the issue for me wasn't if God was real and good. The issue for me was that I had been running so hard for too long that I was just exhausted. In the running, I'd lost sight of the fact that God was God and I was not. There wasn't a key moment. It was a gradual shift that I did not even realize was happening until I was so done. I wasn't reading my Bible. I couldn't. There were no words. All the words on the page were just blurry. I wasn't praying. I couldn't. All I could say was, please just make this stop. I'd got into this trap of thinking that I was such a mess because of the different things I was doing ministry-wise, when in fact I'd said yes to too many things and had not sat with Jesus prior to each decision, and had forgotten how to listen to the Spirit in the day-to-day of what to do. In my searching for making sense of what I was experiencing, I found this podcast by Ruth Haley Barton speaking on her journey of burnout and the discovery of spiritual disciplines. She shared this passage from 1 Kings. Elijah was afraid and ran for his life. When he came to Bathsheba in Judah, he left his servant there, while he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness. He came to a broom bush, sat down under it, and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life. I am no better than my ancestors. Then he lay down under the bush and he fell asleep. All at once an angel touched him and said, Get up and eat. He looked around, and there by his head was some bread baked over hot coals and a jar of water. He ate and drank, and then he lay down. The angel of the Lord came back a second time and touched him, said, Get up, eat, for the journey is too much for you. So he got up, ate and drank. Strengthened by that food, he travelled 40 days and 40 nights until he reached Horeb, the mountain of God. There he went into a cave and he spent the night. What I love about this passage, God doesn't say, Elijah, get up and worship me. Nor does he say, Elijah, why are you afraid? You know I am with you. Nor does he say, Elijah, get up. You haven't finished my work. He sends an angel to care for Elijah, who is feeling so broken that the only thing he can pray is, I've had enough. I want to die. The angel feeds him twice. He sleeps twice. And then he journeys to Mount Horeb, the mountain of God. The same mountain where Moses had God speak to him in the burning bush. The same mountain that Moses received the 10 Commandments. Scripture doesn't say, but I wonder if Elijah heads there in the hope that perhaps he might too hear the voice of God. The idea that perhaps if Moses had heard God's voice there, maybe he could too. The passage goes on. The Lord said, "Go out and stand on the mountain in the presence of the Lord, for the Lord is about to pass by." Then a great and powerful wind tore the mountains apart and shattered the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, there was an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake came a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire came a gentle whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he pulled his cloak over his face, went out and stood at the mouth of the cave. How could I expect to hear the voice of God when my life looked like a hurricane? There was no space for stillness to hear the gentle whisper. There was not one moment of quiet. Not even my sleep was quiet. I was waking most nights, multiple times, with my brain on overdrive, or I'd wake up just simply weeping. I was tired all the time. I felt anxious most of the time. My to-do list was getting longer each day, no matter how much I tried to work. The elements, the earthquakes, the fire, the wind, the chaos, the busyness, the to-do had control. I needed to create the space to be disciplined, to hear the gentle whisper. Please don't hear me say that Jesus can't speak over the elements. He absolutely can. But I think most often he wants our hearts and he doesn't want to yell. He also wants us to realize that what he has for us, quietness, stillness, Sabbath, is God's best for us. They are sweet invitations for us. And when we look at the life of Jesus, how often he retreats to the quiet place. The idea of Elijah seeking the place he knows that God's voice has been heard before feels somewhat familiar. Where does Jesus go to hear God's voice? The quiet. And so my journey of implementing the discipline of silence began. I got myself a book, Invitation to Silence and Solitude, and started reading to learn how. Within the first few chapters, there was a comment that cut me to the core. Essentially, she said, there is no point in reading this book if you're not going to implement what it tells you. I was stunned, right? I can't just gain more head knowledge to fix this problem. I have to be disciplined. I have to make a choice to choose the silence over the plethora of other options. I also realised, though, that I had to do something. In the opening of her book, Ruth shares what she'd been told by a woman working with her when she hit burnout. You are like a jar of river water, all shaken up. What you need to do is sit still long enough that the sediment can settle and the water can become clear. Nothing could have run clearer for me at that point in time. Some really practical things were suggested. Firstly, make sure the things external to us are quiet. No music, no podcasts, no TV, no phone, absolutely no phone, no books, no distractions. Make a quiet place on your own. Secondly, set an alarm. Decide how long you want to sit in silence for. If you've never done it, I'd start with 10 minutes. Set an alarm so that you're not checking the clock every 2 minutes or 30 seconds. And if you don't have an alarm clock, turn your phone onto airplane mode. Set a timer. And sit quietly to see if Jesus would have anything to say to you. Those of us who love music will be tempted to fill the room with some worship music. Don't. Silence. Let me tell you, the first few weeks of doing this is horrible. 10 minutes felt like an hour. I could not stop my brain from spinning the a million things I had to do. Let me encourage you to listen to those voices, see if you can find a common thread. For me, it was the overwhelming feeling of needing to go and help people. So-and-so needs me to, I just need to call such and such to make sure they're okay. And all the while I'm in a mess and in absolutely no place to offer anyone anything except absolute brokenness. Push through. After noticing those screaming voices, I was able to start to pray. Jesus, remind me that you are God and I am not. Jesus, can you make sure my friend is okay? Jesus, I'm so tired of my thoughts. Jesus. I also used, and still regularly use, breath prayer when the voices become too loud. It's a really simple discipline. Breathing in slowly, I'd say Jesus. And whilst breathing out slowly, still my soul, over and over. Concentrating on my breath and the words I was praying. Replace still my soul with whatever you need. Just keep it really simple. I was diligent in silence for months and built that 10 minutes up to about an hour each morning. Became a sweet, sweet way of starting my day, sitting, waiting to hear what Jesus would say. But not once in that time period did I hear the voice of Jesus. I did, however, start to hear, I have my soul healed. That river water in the jar, it started to become clear again. And I was able to pray. I also tasted, felt, and saw the graciousness and goodness of God in a way that I had never experienced before. All from sitting quietly before the Lord. No scripture, no worship music, just silence. Reading my Bible, that took a while longer and didn't really come back into a regular rhythm for me until I implemented Sabbath. Once again, I had no idea how to do this. I spent a good few months reading lots of books on Sabbath. One of my favourite books that I read was by an American woman. She'd moved from the States to Israel with her husband who'd gotten a job. She'd grown up a Christian, but much like my experience, I'd only heard the Sabbath mentioned in passing and had no real example of what it looked like. In Israel, it was part of culture. Everyone did it, regardless of their beliefs. Some things she learnt: preparation for the Sabbath is actually really important. Household chores, shopping for the week, life admin, they're not for the Sabbath. And also, if you haven't done them before Sabbath, you'll spend the whole day feeling horrid with those things just hanging over the top of you. They started Sabbath from sundown on a Saturday and finished sundown on a Sunday. For me, that was super helpful. It meant from Saturday night, the gift of the Sabbath had started. But it also meant I could pack my lunch and feel prepared for work on Monday without having to try and figure out how that fitted into Sabbath as I'd do those things on Sunday night. All the books I read were big on how you spend your Sabbath, making sure you do things that aren't work-related. For each of us, that's going to look really different. So if you're a farmer, it means not being out in the paddock. For a baker, it means not being in the kitchen. For me, working in ministry and as a nurse, baking, being in the garden, journaling, they were a gift. All the books I read were big on extended time with Jesus, being in fellowship with each other, and unplugging from technology. I'd start my day with a sleep-in. I was single and childless at this point in time. I'd have my time of silence, and from there I would read scripture. I'd pick one of the things that I enjoyed to do, and I'd start to potter. I'd most often have an afternoon nap and would finish my Sabbath going to night church. It was a slow and sweet-filled day of rest, and so different to the chaos that had been so much part of my life for I'm not exactly sure how long. Let me encourage you, maybe even plead with you. Spend some time reflecting on what we've looked at over the last 2 months, and do not throw out the opportunity to learn and to implement. If your soul is dry and empty and feels helpless and you just want it to stop, there is hope. The challenge, I think, is, are we willing to actually create the space to sit quietly enough to hear Jesus and to allow him to do the healing? If you have no idea what I've been talking about, you've not yet been to the desert, let me encourage you with this. Firstly, implementing these disciplines, these rhythms, will assist you in not having a train wreck. And secondly, if you get to this place, it is just so lonely. Do not do what I did and feel completely alone, ashamed because I didn't know who I was, where I was, if God was even real anymore, wondering if I was going crazy. And I had no idea how to even start to return to Jesus. Find someone who's been on this journey. Likely, it will be someone a few years older than you that's walked a little longer with Jesus. Share your heart, share your soul. Allow them to pray for you. Don't worry that you don't have the words. This is why we walk in community, to pick each other up and continuing to walk towards Jesus. And remember Elijah. Sleep, eat. Sleep, eat. And journey to where we know God's voice has been heard before, in the quiet place.
Wow. If you didn't catch that, there's some gold right there. Do it, I think, would be a good take home. And Josh and Heather just walked so closely. That's been beautiful. Now we're going to transition a little bit. And I'd just like to point out, you don't have to go through a crisis to do this. You know, with respect, if you have and you've been through that. But let's learn from each other. Now, Josie, my goodness, you're in for one special story. I don't want to steal any thunder. Josie, come and just share your heart. This is incredible.
Hello? Oh, it works, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so a lot of you know that I have had some bad health, to say the least, in the past few months. So I'm just going to share a little bit about what I've gone through. Some of the bad stuff, some of the good stuff, because there's good stuff too, and where I'm up to at the moment. And then I'll share a few thoughts that I had as well, because you generally learn stuff when things go wrong. Yeah. All right, cool. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah? All right, great. All right, so in August last year, I got something called severe necrotizing pancreatitis. Now, I was perfectly healthy, and I didn't do anything wrong. I was actually on a diet at the time, and I was drinking no alcohol, because I'm on a diet. I was having Jenny Craig lunches, and I was doing all the right things, exercising every day, but I just got really sick for no reason. The doctors don't know why I got sick, so that happens. It's necrotizing pancreatitis is basically, you've got a problem with your pancreas, but your necrotizing basically means that your body starts eating away at the tissues and your organs start to fail as well. So it's a very bad type of pancreatitis. Usually people with pancreatitis go into hospital for about 2 weeks, and then they go home and continue life, and I was in hospital for 7.5 months. And most of that was in Sydney. So I got severe abdominal pain on a Friday morning, took an ambulance to the Bathurst Hospital, and they took some blood to do blood tests, and they realised they couldn't actually use the blood because it was not red like normal blood, it was milky white. That's how high my lipids were, my fats, triglycerides in my blood. So of course I was quite sick. At that point they flew me by helicopter to Sydney for treatment. So I spent 3 months in ICU. It's a long time. I don't remember a lot of that. I was in a coma on and off for about 2 months of that, and on a ventilator and all of that sort of thing. But I have a few small memories of Matthew, of course, and my sister, Sarah, and some very weird dreams that went on for a long time. Yeah. So do you remember things from a coma? So of course I had wires and tubes coming out of me everywhere. I had a central line, dialysis because my kidneys were failing, insulin, lots of medications, antibiotics, pain meds, that sort of thing. I had about 10 operations, major operations. I've got this crazy scar, goes all the way. It's huge. They couldn't actually close me up because of all the infection and everything. So they put plastic over me for a while, and then they put a vac seal on me, and I've just had to grow the skin, about that much skin, to close it up. The body's pretty cool. It does some pretty cool things. I had like 5 drains coming out. I had 2 tubes coming out of my nose. I haven't eaten food since August last year. That's crazy. Except jelly. Love jelly. So many types of jelly. And just to give you an idea of how unwell and unfunctional I was, usually using your phone is pretty easy. It's very light, it's handy. I couldn't actually hold my phone, I couldn't hold it, and I couldn't type anything because I was shaking so much, so I couldn't even use my phone. So it's pretty crazy. So I was a bit sick. Then the last couple of months since being home, I think I came home in April-ish, middle of April, I've had to deal with some things. So at the moment I've got 2 bags attached to my side, going from a hole in my upper intestines and a hole in my lower intestines. So I have to deal with that all the time. I have a PEG, which is similar to a PEG, if you've heard of that. It's a tube going into your tummy for feeds and medication, but mine goes through my stomach and past the hole in my upper intestines, which is good. I get feeds through that. So I'm attached to an IV pole 16 hours a day at the moment. And obviously with the bag changes and everything like that as well. So, I've had to kind of manage that myself, which has been a nice little challenge. But I still managed to do a lot of things that I love. So I started playing trombone again a few months ago, and that's good fun. I think I've played in about 4 concerts actually. So, so I'm still able to do some really good things. So it's really good. So that's the situation. So I've been building up my strength for my next operation. On Friday, I got a call from my specialist surgeon, who's actually one of the best in Australia. He's very good. He said, how do you feel about going in for major surgery on Wednesday to, fix everything up? And I'm like, Wednesday, right, okay. Let's go back into hospital. But obviously there's risks associated with that, but the prognosis is pretty good, and I'll be able to eat food again and stuff like that. So I don't know what my long-term health issues will be. There probably will be something, but it'll be a better situation than it has been. So there's hope and there's good stuff to come out of that. So in life, we get the good and we get the bad and we get everything in between, as you all know. It's a nice little mixed bag of treats, as I say. So even though there were obviously some really awful things that have happened, there have also been some amazing things that have happened where you can see God working even in the middle of something that's really bad, which is really good. So I'm going to share 3 of those things. And you could call them a miracle because they're medically unexplainable. the doctors don't have an explanation of why these things have happened. So, yeah, I'll let you decide. So the first thing that happened was my kidneys were failing, so much so that 2 different specialist kidney doctors in Sydney up at RPA, top of their field, they know what they're talking about, they both said emphatically, your kidneys are failing, you are either going to be on dialysis 3 times a week for the rest of your life, or we'll have to do a transplant. And, you know, that's not great news to get. And within the week, my kidneys, I was off dialysis, my kidneys were functioning perfectly well, and they can't explain it. And that's when everyone was praying. And that's the only thing that, like, my body wasn't able to do that. It was failing. I was very sick. So it's crazy. And the second thing that happened was obviously my pancreas wasn't working properly, being pancreatitis. It was inflamed and infected, and they thought they would have to cut some of it out, and I would be on insulin for the rest of my life. But within the week, again, pancreas was working fine. I was off all insulin, and I've had my sugars checked every day pretty much for months. Well, not the last little bit, but you get the point. And they've been perfectly fine. So that's another thing that, yeah, that's crazy, and they can't explain that either. I get a really severe type of pancreatitis, and my pancreas is fine. What? Yeah, so it's pretty cool. And the third thing, some of you might know that I've struggled with depression for a number of years. It's about 20 years, 21 years actually. And it's quite awful. If anyone's struggled with depression, you know what I'm talking about, or you've probably known people that have struggled with it. It's not easy. I like to describe it as like, basically the joy is sucked out of everything good in your life, and everything is bland at best. And that's the good part of it. Like, then of course you have to deal with all the thoughts and all that negativity, and it's just an awful thing, depression. And I probably had a fairly bad version of it over time as well. But so I've had that history. When I woke up from the coma, I had psychiatrists hanging out all the time, like every couple of days they come and check on me, because they thought, oh, surely after such a bad life event, the most common response would be to be upset about that and to be depressed. And you have a history of depression, bad depression, and so surely, logically, you would be not coping right now. And I was fine. I was completely fine. I actually haven't been depressed at all in the last, since I woke up from the coma, which is unheard of. My doctors who know me well in Orange, I see a psychiatrist and a GP and a psychologist, and none of them can believe it. They're like, you're not the same person. Like, how is this possible? Your face is more reactive to emotions, and you're thinking clearly, and you're not depressed. And I'm like, yeah, it's amazing. I'm loving it. And of course, I don't know what the future holds. Like, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. But for the time right now, where I've needed to not be depressed, I've been given the gift of not being depressed. And it's amazing. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. Now, I don't know why prayers work sometimes and not others. I don't know that. Like, we all kind of struggle with that. It is a mystery, but I'm just amazed that it happened in my situation, and I feel very lucky, and I'm going to celebrate that, definitely. When I was leaving RPA, I said thanks to my specialist surgeon for keeping me alive, which is probably an understatement, because, I mean, he saved my life. But I was like, no, let's go low-key, let's be Australian, you know. And, I said, thank you for keeping me alive. And he paused and he said, actually, it was powers outside of my control. So he can't explain. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, I'm just going to share a few thoughts. I've got 4 thoughts. Take them with a grain of salt, whatever. And then I've got 2 other things I want to share. So, things I've learned, I guess. God is always with me. I just think of him and I feel his presence with me. And I don't usually feel it, like most people don't feel that, but in this season, at the moment, I've been able to feel that. And that's been so comforting and yeah, really, really good. You can't always choose what happens to you, but you can choose how you respond. I've been given this one precious life, and I'm not going to waste it by being bitter about what's happened. So I've decided. God didn't do this to me, because a lot of people respond and go, well, God, why? Like rage against kind of thing, you know. Why did this happen? But I can't be angry at God. He loves me, and everything he does is motivated by love. And when I focus on Jesus, his love, and have an eternal perspective, everything else is manageable. So the two things I want to share, a lot of you will know the song Goodness of God. So I've mashed up the first two verses to say the lines that I feel are good for me. You know, sorry, Jan Johnson, sorry. And they go like this. I love you, Lord. You have led me through the fire. In the darkest night, you are close like no other. From the moment that I wake up until I lay my head, I will sing of the goodness of God. And I'm just going to finish with a prayer. Now, I don't usually write prayers down because that's not my thing. I think you just talk to God. That's great, just talk to God. He's just like, you know, yeah. But I think there is a place for writing some thoughts down sometimes and saying exactly the words that you want to say. And so I wrote them down about a month ago just to kind of get my thoughts down. And so this is what I want to say today. So we'll pray. So if you want to close your eyes and pray it to in your head, you can do that. Yeah, and I'll leave you with that. So here we go. All right. God, my God, you reign over the entire universe and beyond. Everything you do is motivated by your perfect love, and I love you. You are more beautiful than I can ever imagine or understand. Thank you for living with me always. Thank you for your reassuring and powerful grace. Thank you for your saturating love that transforms us all. I love you, God. Thank you for loving me. Amen.
Wow. Come on, give Josie a hand. Wow. I might get the musos up on stage. We're going to take 5 minutes. There's a few things to do. My goodness, I don't know if I can hold this together, Josie. If you have not experienced the depth of what you've experienced, maybe just this morning we've got a little taste, Josie, and Matt, to walk that through with your wife. My goodness. We're going to pray for you. Through all of that this morning, I want you to know that God cares for you. And that by walking with God, you can have real joy and real peace inside, no matter what. And that's the point. Whether you're in extreme situations, like Josie and Heather, whether you're just facing life with the kids, or life at work, or just your own self, you can experience the goodness of God. That's what he's here for. He really does love us. And he really does want us to know that.
Hey, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, or you can download our church app to keep up to date with what's going on. And of course, if you're in the Bathurst area, we'd love you to pop in and say hello.
Wonderful. See you soon.